Hello and welcome to this introductory video on advanced user dataset functionality in the H2Pathways web app. To begin, let's go to the web app and I'm first going to log in as a regular user. Okay, and the reason for this is I want to just first demonstrate the way things traditionally work, and then that will let me illustrate what's different about the advanced user features. So as a standard user, I'm just going to make a test scenario here to illustrate. You'll see here you've got all the features. We've seen this before in the introductory video. We're just going to use the defaults. Now I'm going to add a module, which will be a solar panel module. So it's a resource, electricity, solar. Okay, as usual, we need to specify a location. I'm just going to choose somewhere in Northwest WA. Okay, and after we've specified the location, we'll be prompted to enter parameters. So here, this is really what I wanted to show. As a standard user, you're given two options. You're either going to use the literature default values, or you can enter user-defined values, which allow you to specify whatever value you want. Okay, you can go back and forth between the two. But the key point is these literature default values are based on standard references that we've compiled, and they live inside of a data set that we call the base data set. And as a standard user, this is really the only source of information that's available. The motivation for advanced user functionality is that we want to enable the ability for advanced users to maintain their own collection of default values, okay, which avoids the process of having to manually re-enter parameters every time a new scenario is being created. So to demonstrate this, I'm going to log out of my standard user account now, and I'm going to log in again as an advanced user. Now, the first thing you'll notice as an advanced user that looks different is that there's an extra tab here, this Manage Data menu. And this is basically where all the functionality related to data sets and the associated document modules is based. So to begin, let me go to the Manage Datasets tab. At the minute, this advanced user hasn't done anything before, so they have no datasets defined yet. I'm going to click this button to create a new dataset. And I'm just going to call it something representative. So we've got a data set now. We can actually click on this, and you can see that so far we've got an empty data set. There's nothing in it, but we can now press this button to start adding documents. So the hierarchy is there's a data set. The data set is a collection of documents, and a document could be an actual report or a paper that you've got from the literature, or it could be just your own kind of convenient bucket of data that you want to use. Okay. Inside each document, as we'll get to in a second, there will be a series of document modules. Let's just begin by giving the document a name. I'm just populating these with the simplest values. We actually do need to enter a valid URL for this, which is why I'm typing something there. Okay, otherwise I'm just using everything sort of default. Okay, now we see we've got a document. It belongs to the data set that we created a minute ago. Okay, but so far this document actually doesn't have any modules in it. And so the whole point is for each document, there'll be a series, one or more actual modules, and each module represents a certain technology. So I'm just clicking on Add Document Module, and this looks very much like what we see when we are in a scenario adding modules. So let's stick with the solar panel that we looked at before. Okay, so I've just set solar panel, click Next. You'll notice we didn't get a location because what we're dealing with here is an abstract kind of technology. It's not a specific instance of a technology. We've got the ability now to set parameter values, and I'm just going to go ahead here and enter something, completely, random. Okay, so these are just two values I'm entering to illustrate the point. I've added those, and I'm going to now go and add one more. Let's make it water. say mains water. Okay, now once again we have two things, and I want to illustrate here that with these fields you're not actually obliged to enter a value for every single field. So I'm going to enter a price, and I'm not going to enter anything for the production emissions. Okay, and we'll come back to what that leads to when we actually go to create a scenario. Okay, so I've added two modules here. I've got one document and it lives inside my data set. So I think this is all I need now for the purposes of this demonstration. Okay, to illustrate things, we're going to actually go and create a new scenario. Now, this is where the first difference is clear. So we've got all the same parameters as before, but at the bottom, we've got now the ability to choose a data set. Okay, so the base data set is what we would normally have been using without explicitly choosing it. Now we can choose our own data set. And I realize for those watching the video here, I think our video capture software doesn't actually show these drop-down menus. So you just take my word for it that the two options here are base and www.test1, okay? So I'm going to choose the www.test1 as the data set for this scenario. Okay, and so now we're in the scenario, we can start adding modules. And this is where we're going to see the effect of having our own data set. So let's add a solar panel. Oops. Okay, let's just again choose a random Northwest WA location. Okay, we click on next to get the parameters. Okay, now you can see the drop down to the left here is telling us that this value is coming from our own data set. You see in both cases, these are the values I entered just a minute ago. They're read-only. Okay, and as before, as you can normally do, we can also switch to using user-defined. So I could go and change this to whatever I want. If I change my mind, I can go back to using the value from the data set. Okay, so that's the functionality that we were aiming to support here. Now we're just going to go and add another. Let's add the mains water module that for which I also added a document module. Again, a random location up there. Parameters. Okay, so now we see, if you remember, we defined a value for the price, and then we didn't define a value for the production emissions. So what you can see, what's happening here is we're using the value from our data set since we defined one. For the other parameter, we didn't define it, so it just defaults back to using the literature values from our base data set. Okay, once again, these can all be manually changed, and you can go back and forth. You'll notice for the base data set, there tends to be a little comment underneath telling you where the value came from. Sometimes that value's been calculated. Most of the time, it just comes from an average. In this case, it was there was only one literature value that we based this value off. Okay, so I can go ahead now and submit that. And so this is basically the point of this functionality. So just to reiterate, you've got the ability to create your own data set, populate it with documents, and each document can have one or more document modules. And each document module gives you the ability to add your own value for any of the parameters that you want to override. Okay, and when you do that, they will then become the default values in any scenarios that you create. Just remembering that in each scenario, you need to set your user data set as the data set for the scenario. Okay, so hope that was helpful. Feel free to leave comments or get in touch with us to let us know if any of this needs more explanation, or if you're using it and you find any bugs. We'd love to hear your feedback. Thanks very much.